Hey friends, Lee Brown here with One Community Real Estate, and it is Monday, March 16th, and I'm coming at you from my house, which is a shambles because we're in the process of moving. In fact, we've been moving over the last 4 days into a house that we've been renovating for 2.5 years. Totally worth the trouble, but honestly, this took way longer than anticipated. And so my life is a little bit upside down right now. You may feel like your life's upside down right now too, because the unsettling that has been caused by the Wuhan virus is intense. And so, of course, I'm working from home. My husband is working from home, and the children are schooling from home since the schools have been shut down. And our school system, bless them, was not ready for extended learning from home opportunities. And so they're having to do mom work today, which is going to consist of some home ec, and it's going to consist of some fitness. And they did some projects online. And so we're going to work together on managing, because when a situation arises like the Wuhan virus, it's a lot to deal with. Now, frankly, some of y'all, the biggest advice I can give you is to cut the news off. The news is making you panic for no particular reason. And I'm also going to tell y'all to wash your hands, although I'm not sure if any of y'all were washing your hands before the Wuhan virus happened, because apparently this is a new and awesome discovery for people that clean hands are helpful. And so anyway, I checked my mailbox and I had a padded package, and it came from the National Association of Realtors. Y'all want to see what's in my padded package? Ooh, it looks like a jewelry box, and it is. This, y'all, is my single most expensive piece of jewelry. And I'm going to tell you, it's actually relevant to this whole Wuhan virus thing that's going on, because what this pin indicates is that I have spent some several years taking care of things in advance. I'm a planner. You might call me a prepper, but y'all don't know everything about me. Let's just call me a planner for the sake of some of y'all thinking I'm as crazy as you thought. But when you invest in property rights for a long time, that means you have a lot of conversations and you get to know people. If you run around all the time with hair on fire syndrome, you're killing yourself. And that's why some of y'all are panicked right now, because your hair on fire, people. And when your hair on fire and something happens, it sends you into a flat panic because you didn't think about it in advance. So let me tell you what this pin means. This pin is what happens with realtors when they are willing to have conversations over years and years. Now, I'm a 20-year realtor. This pin is currently 11 years worth of investing in property rights, because for the first 9 years, I didn't know what was going on. And so if you want to have one of these, you have to be a realtor or our immediate family member, or be one of our corporate allies who understands the impact of property rights and all the affiliated businesses like moving companies, right? Because when somebody buys or sells a house, lots and lots of people are impacted. Trust me, a lot of people have made money off of Lee Brown in this process of moving houses. But think about this. When you spend years and years having conversations, people are willing to listen to you because trust has built up and the depth of relationship has built up. And so the example of that is that in 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act went into effect, and it has been amazing for our economy. But what happened with real estate is there was a provision in there that said they were going to change the capital gains exclusion, because currently if you live in your house 2 out of 5 years, your primary residence, your capital gains are going to be excluded. It was going to change to 5 out of 8, but realtors and our favorite realtor champion, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who is amazing and who I'll be knocking on doors for in 2022 because he gets how important real estate is to all community members. He said, now hang on just a minute, y'all. We got to keep that capital gains exclusion low. And he did, and it worked. And so that's why if you want to sell a house today, you need to ask your realtor about the impact for you, because there's different numbers for single versus marrieds and how many houses you bought and sold and what counts toward that number. By the way, y'all, these are things that apps don't do. And so if you go to sell your house through an app, they may not know things like this. So look for a realtor and look for one that's wearing a major investor pin, because those are the realtors that made sure you would have the capital gains exclusion. Because some of us are carrying the water for all of us. And if you want to know more about this pin or getting one, if you're an eligible party, you can send me a message through the DMs. You can slide into my DMs if you want to talk about political advocacy for property rights. So what does that have to do with the Wuhan virus? Well, the whole thing is this. People are panicking right now because this has come out of nowhere. Well, it doesn't really come out of nowhere if you're paying attention to the news. And I don't mean the mainstream media because they scare the living daylights out of people. I mean like, you know, actual research journalists that are still out there. Primarily they're on Twitter, which can be a dumpster fire. But if you learn who to follow that's reasonable and calm and has data and actual facts and not just feelings, you can get a lot of good information. So when you know that things are coming, you start planning in advance. In fact, the biggest thing we can learn about what's happening right now with this panic is that a lot of us that were in real estate during the Great Recession aren't panicking nearly as much as our newer friends. Why? Because we saw what happened. Now, I've been in real estate for 20 years, so I was in a really good market where you could be somebody who could barely fog a mirror and list a house and it would sell. And then in 2007, the wheels started falling off and they were all the way off by 2008. And I remember, y'all, on July 31st of 2007, when I had 7 closings that day that did not happen because the lender who was providing the funding dried up. And so the funding never occurred. And that was where we really saw it start to impact. And that's just here in Charlotte. Other markets experienced it at different times. Kind of like this Wuhan virus. It's hitting different markets at different times. And so if you're paying attention, you can plan in advance. And so what happened at that time was the phones stopped ringing. Well, why did the Great Recession happen? It was bad mortgage tranches. If you haven't watched the movie The Big Short or read that book, I do recommend it because it does break it down into a very understandable collection of facts and figures, and there's a little bit of fictionalization because you got to keep things interesting. But y'all are realtors. You do that all the time when you say things like has great bones. That's fictionalizing for a lot of y'all. Some of these houses don't have great bones, but that's a different discussion. This one did. We had to take it down to studs. We brought it back. And so your business is the same way, right? We're going to have to take it down to studs and bring it back. But anyway, the bones were different during the Great Recession. We had stated income, no doc loans, we had straw buyers, we had a hot mess going on in the market, and it all impacted at the same time, which led to a slide. What we're experiencing right now is a slip because our underlying economic conditions aren't the problem. The problem right now is fear and panic, and more fear and more panic. So again, turn off the news and also wash your hands. And so what we learned during that time is that you had to get refocused. And your real estate business or any business that you're running can survive oddball market conditions if you stay focused. So here's step 1 in staying focused. I'm at home. I am surrounded by boxes. I should probably continue unpacking, but I need to work. Here's my computer. Here's my stupid reading glasses. Let me put them on so I can prove that I am working here. You know how much I can't stand this. My vanity is eaten up by having to wear reading glasses. But you see I have my pearls on. Let me fix my clasp now that I notice that in the camera. And I've got my lipstick on, my hair is did, and my face is on. And yes, I'm wearing a denim dress, but it's a dress because you're far more likely to get work done if you're dressed for work. Those of y'all that are wearing your pajamas, go put them in the wash. If you've worn them for 3 days, that's a sign that it is time to go get in the shower and put yourself back together. Because when you're responding to clients and client needs and future clients and their needs, or thinking about your business in a proactive way, you're going to do a better job if you're in professional you. That's step 1. And I tell you, y'all, we saw this during the Great Recession. There were some people who just seemed to give up. And when they had a chance to talk to somebody, they were gloom and doom and the world's ending. That's not helpful behavior. I will tell you, I did get a lot of business during the Great Recession. People told me, I'd say, why'd y'all pick me? Because you should always ask somebody why they chose to give you their business and their money, whether you're running a cupcake shop or you're a realtor or a mortgage lender. Does not matter. Ask them, why did you pick me? Y'all, a lot of people said, because you were smiling and cheerful and you had some ideas and answers. It's not about telling lies or being fake. It's not about rainbows and unicorns and glitter and sunshine. Sometimes it's about how can I help? What's going on with you? And saying, you know what? Let's figure it out. As opposed to being the person who says the world's gonna end. There's a lot of people out there that think the world's gonna end. It's not. In fact, I'll tell y'all, a good place to get some perspective is documentaries. I love watching documentaries. So this morning I had my workout because, right, things need to keep happening no matter what's happening in the markets or in the fear world. Things got to happen. So during my workout, I was on the elliptical, which for me is dreadfully boring. So I had my app to watch my programs on. So today I was on Amazon Prime and I pulled up a documentary on the Dust Bowl. Now, not having grown up in the panhandle of Oklahoma, I don't know all the details about the Dust Bowl. I did read The Grapes of Wrath one time, but that's been quite some time because John Steinbeck's writing style is not exactly riveting to me. And so if you live in the panhandle of Oklahoma, I would wager that as a child, you were taught all about that era. And one thing we know is that during the Dust Bowl, everybody thought it was going to be a blip, and it wasn't a blip. They didn't have a slip, they had a slide. And we know that it was accompanied by more than those walls of dust storms that came through. I did not know that there was a major infestation of jackrabbits because the coyotes weren't there to take them out, and so they would have like a circle and club jackrabbits to death because they were eating what greenery there was. It was craziness. Did not know about the locust either. It was biblical kind of plagues, but still the people who survived that had this next year attitude. So if you want to survive any kind of a wild time in your life, you got to think, you know what, next year is going to be all right. Thinking about next steps. And so I was watching that, and it got me to thinking about what I can do in my real estate life or in my speaker life, because frankly, all of that's canceled right now. And so I'm trying to figure that piece out as well. What am I going to do to have a next year kind of an attitude? Well, the first thing you do to have a next year attitude is take stock of where you are today. And that can be a little painful because sometimes we have to be very honest with ourselves. And frankly, I love my realtor people. Y'all are passive aggressive and you really don't want to look at the realities. You like to just make some fluff up and roll on to the next thing. So I want you to do this. If you are a realtor member, go to nar.realtor and look up the Center for Financial Wellness. In fact, you can get there easier at financialwellness.realtor. One of the big goals of our national president, Bill Brown, from 2017, now Bill is from Oakland, California, one of his big goals was to help realtors better plan for their financial futures. And this also goes back to the Great Recession because many people were caught unawares when it hit because we didn't see it coming. And when it hit, we did not have any idea how big and bad it was going to get. And so many people were not liquid and had not had a lot of good savings. And Bill wants that to get better. So if you go to the Center for Financial Wellness, you can do an assessment of where you are today, right? And then you can think about next year and how you're going to prepare yourself for a better financial future. One of the ways that you do that as a realtor is investment real estate. Now, many realtors are afraid of investment properties, frankly, because they watched too much television. And if you watch that Michael Keaton movie, Pacific Heights, that might be why you don't ever want to buy a rental property, but the reality is it's wonderful in most areas. However, if your area is beset by rent control, you might want to buy somewhere that it's not, because rent control is bad for tenants and landlords, and it is just bad for marketplaces. The only person that's good for is politicians who like to pander to people. And again, that's why you want to make sure that you're talking to realtors who wear this, because they understand that rent control is not a partisan issue. It's just bad policy. And so if you want to be a good landlord, let's think about where you can be an amazing landlord, because people need to have roofs over their heads and often they can't buy it themselves. And so could you be the one that provides it? Yes, maybe you could. And so if you go to this Center for Financial Wellness, if you're not versed in it, we've got tools there to help you learn, spreadsheets to help you who are math deficient plug in the numbers and make good evaluations for yourself and for your clients. So this is one thing you absolutely can be doing right now to avoid panic. Action is one of those things that helps you avoid panic. So once you get your professional self put together, go get yourself this little bit of education. Start with your free resources. Now, let's just say some of y'all want to go in one step deeper and learn more details. Go to CRS.com and look at all the e-learning available there. Whew, child, so much. So many webinars and big classes. Now you need to do 2 hours a year anyway if you carry the CRS designation. So go on and do that now while you're at home with your precious pumpkins and they're doing online learning. You do some too. Now, if you want to get really in depth and spend more money on a class that's harder, okay, granted it's harder, but it's worth it. That's the CCIM investment management class. That's your commercial designation. Frankly, that class is super hard. I'm going to have to take it again myself, and I'm a smart person, but I did not absorb it really well because I'm also a middle-aged smart person with ADD who does not absorb well the first time. So go take classes again. But when you start adding up all the pieces about investment properties, you're going to have tools to help your clients. Now, which clients need help with real estate investing? Frankly, it's a lot of people right now who are panicking because their retirement assets have really gone down. And they thought that diversification of their investments was having Duke Power and Coca-Cola and Delta. Well, those are all stocks. And when some stocks go down, a lot of other ones go down too because they're a related asset class. And a lot of people are saying, I wish I had a little bit of real estate in my portfolio because rents are due on the 1st anyway. Now, I will say this, if you're a landlord and you've got some tenants that are losing their income right now because their bars and restaurants and venues are shutting down, maybe figure out a workaround plan, have a little grace, because your best landlords have a little bit of grace about them. And so what I want you to think about is how you can call people and say, if the stock market has made your stomach hurt, let's talk about investment real estate. Now, before you make that phone call, I want you to do one other thing for me. This is a multi-step tool, by the way. You're going to go online and get some of your education. And now I want you to call one of your lenders. In fact, call every lender with whom you work locally and say who all handles investment real estate. Because remember this, when interest rates go down, we often in the real estate side talk to homeowners about making a purchase or about people doing refinances. But there's also opportunity on investment real estate because it carries a higher interest rate than your primary residence because it's a different level of risk. But when rates overall go down, so do investment real estate rates. And it's a great time to purchase because that means when you're charging a market rent, if your costs are lower, you've got more cash flow. It also means that if you're showing a little bit of grace and your costs are lower, it's easier for you to help somebody out. And one of our jobs is always to operate from a space of abundance and not scarcity. So let's think about how we can be resources when it comes to diversification of investments. I'll also tell you, as a former stockbroker, and I no longer carry those licenses, and so this is not licensed financial information, please call a CFP for that. But I will tell you that if today is not your retirement day when you are cashing in, stop looking at your accounts. Just don't look at them. Looking is making your stomach hurt. Same reason you should not watch the mainstream media right now because they want you panicked because that gives them more power over you. Take that power back from them and quit watching that mess and get some stuff done, right? Professional self. Call your lenders to find out who does investment properties. Get some online education. And then we're going to start calling people and finding out who needs help. Because y'all, there are people out there that would love to have some diversification, and right now is a great time to do it. It also means that you, as a realtor, if you have some available liquid funds, you might should think about buying an investment property too. Your goal ideally could be one property a year, and that could be any price range. And maybe if you live in an expensive market, this is when you think about your network of professionals throughout the profession who could help you out. I always go to people in any market who have their CRS designation and who are major investors in political advocacy, because that tells me that they're willing to go out, learn, and do things, and they're a mile deep in their communities, and they get how critical property rights are to a functioning, smart, constitutional republic like the one we live in. Now, let me look at some of the questions that y'all asked me about things we need to do right here. And Shazam. See, I love it when y'all ask me things because you know I like to have answers. So we have here a question about when you get the call from a seller who wants to sell but is afraid of the Wuhan virus, what is your response? Well, I want you to understand a couple of things. Whenever the market hits a slip And we're going to consider this a slip right now and not a slide because this is unprecedented. We haven't had a lot of pandemics to deal with, especially ones that have had the fear stoked and with panic buying and everything else going on. So your job is to be the calm, rational person with good, honest information. Some sellers are afraid right now because they don't want buyers bringing that virus into their homes. They've got a lot of uncertainty going on. So when you're talking to sellers, I want you to ask this question. What happens for you if this house does not sell? Because that's going to tell you everything you need to know. For some people, houses need to sell, period. The market conditions don't matter. For that particular home seller, you might be having a discussion about how the price could reflect the current economic uncertainty, and they may have to put their house on sale. So let's go back to the stock market again. I told y'all not to look at your accounts and to remember that if you're not retiring today, this is not your day to stress out about it. I'll also remind you that when things go on sale like this is a buying opportunity. I mean, come on, y'all. Why do you think Warren Buffett bought a whole bunch of Delta stock last week? Delta's not going anywhere. They're just having a moment right now. And so if you have available funds, that's the kind of stock that you buy. Look at the fundamentals. Look at the PE ratio. Look at the cash they have on hand. Delta's a good, solid company. Do what Warren Buffett does and buy when it's on sale. Same thing with your houses. So you're going to have to tell this home seller, we may have to put your house on the clearance rack if we're going to get it to sell. Because one thing that I think many realtors forget is that in every market condition, houses do sell, buyers do buy. You just may have to make it a really irresistible value if it needs to go away. Now, if you say to your seller, what happens if it doesn't sell? And they say, we're all right. All right, then let's just ride it out together. So you've got to have good, honest conversations with people because we don't know how long this is going to last or what kind of impact it's going to have. Now, the next question was, how do we keep buyers buying? Well, help them understand the difference between the cost of rent and the cost of buying right now. Y'all, interest rates went down again. Now, understand too, the Fed's moves don't always directly impact mortgage rates. Go read the article that Lawrence Yun, the National Association of Realtors chief economist, put out. It's on his LinkedIn page, is where I always read what Lawrence writes, and help people understand the bigger economic picture. But what you need to know about the mortgage companies right now is they are slammed because of rates cratering about a week and a half ago, because when that happened, refis went through the roof and purchase money went going busy after lockdowns. Well, remember too, I'm working from home. My whole family is working from home. A lot of banks and lenders are having the same situation. They are shorthanded with underwriters and closers. So you're going to, A, have to have some patience, and B, you're going to have to ask more questions. Wells Fargo, I know, has been reallocating people from department to department to try and help with the mortgage influx. But you need to be aware of these situations and tell your buyers to make sure they ask about rates. And this is, by the way, why you don't want to get a loan online, because when you call your local lender, they can give you really good information and you'll get to talk to someone direct and not get put into a queue full of faceless people. And let's see. Oh, we are blessed with more family time right now. Yes, we are. I will tell you something else you got to plan for, not just your financial future or planning for political advocacy. You got to plan as a parent and plan to raise young people that are resilient. Some of y'all have covered your children up with your helicoptering for far too long, and they don't know how to react when things are different. You need to talk to your kids about things. I will tell you, mine are fully educated on all of this going on with the Wuhan virus. We have talked about pros, cons, medical information. We have looked at how some news people on CNN this morning, a woman was talking on top of the Surgeon General. That is not good behavior, frankly. Just in life, you should not talk on top of other people. I have to fight the tendency myself as a natural know-it-all. But I told my children, I said, this is not the time for political grandstand, and this is the time for information. And so my job as a parent is to help them see and learn and ask good questions and be smart citizens, right? Washing their hands and doing their work that they have been assigned to do. So that means I am blessed with that family time. It also means my kids are going to have some good lessons in fitness, because mom is going to conduct some PE classes outside in the street. And we're going to have some home ec classes, and we're going to make some bread and some baked goods, because I love to bake and I have almost uncovered my whole kitchen. And so what do you do with that time should be about less with the devices and less with fear mongering and more with, hey, here's the situation. Here's how we're going to manage it. Now, frankly, in my household, we have a generator and a water supply and some MREs. And so mine know about planning. You can call it prepping, but I call it planning. And then, oh, we got to have this chance to draw closer to the Lord. Let me tell y'all something y'all could be doing is reading the scriptures. And those of y'all that aren't believers, I'll introduce you if you want me to. I'm good with Jesus like that. But you should know that when you can't go to church, that's hard because a faith person usually draws calm and peace from other faithful people. And when you can't go to church, sometimes that was your source of calm and peace. So my daughter and I went to church online yesterday and listened to a podcast together. And, you know, we didn't go jumping out of the car, woohoo, a whole bunch, but it was a chance for us to listen together and learn together, do some devotions together, you know, just have some conversations. It's all good stuff, and there's lots and lots of questions to have about the plagues, frankly. It's a good time to go back and read Exodus. Now, let's see. Best technology to leverage your business right now? Ooh, Zoom, y'all. I love Zoom. In fact, they were featured this morning as one of the stocks to buy during the work from home moment we're having. Zoom is my favorite video conferencing technology. I use it for recording the video for my podcast, and I also love Zoom for doing coaching calls for my real estate coaching business. And when I'm dealing with a home seller who's in the middle of a divorce, Zoom is amazing for making us all stay on the same page because every call is recorded. So that makes it easy for everybody to be up and up, transparent, and know that nobody's hiding anything from each other. So that's Zoom. I love Zoom. Let's see. Should we have new language in our contracts? Yes. But if you are not a lawyer, you're not supposed to write things for your contracts, realtor friends. You know that's not what you should be doing. Now, those of y'all that have a JD, rock on. You belong to a bar, amen. If you took the LSAT and went to law school for a semester, you are not a lawyer. And so I want you to call your favorite lawyer and say, could we add a clause about unforeseen delays based on government shutdown? I think that's a really smart move. And in fact, I like that idea, Margie Medlin. I'm probably going to implement it myself as soon as I finish making this video for you friends. Let's see. God is in control. Amen, sister. And when God's in control, you get to take action because God doesn't take control so that we can lay around on the couch in our yoga pants, eat bonbons, and think everything's going to solve itself. So when you put your professional cell phone and you get that online education and you're going to ask your seller what happens if the house doesn't sell, and you talk to your lenders about educating your buyers, what are you going to do next? You're going to go out and take action. I will tell you that during the Great Recession, for me, the action that saved me when I was in a really low place mentally, because I'm not cheerful and optimistic all the time. I know, right? I fake it really well. But when things were awful, I was so nervous that real estate was going to end forever that I went out and took organ lessons. Now, I've been a pianist since I was 6. And so I'm like, well, if I could play the organ too, I can get a church job. I took some lessons. And as a lifelong pianist, it's hard to learn, but it's not impossible. I went out and auditioned for some church jobs looking for a revenue stream. None of them hired me, frankly, and so I have to practice more on that, and my piano room is just about set up so I can do that. But in the process, my real estate business got stronger because for me personally, having activity to keep me moving forward allows me to keep activity moving forward in other avenues too. So if you're the person who just can't make a phone call until something productive has happened, go read a book, read an article, go out and pull weeds. I love pulling weeds. I was actually pulling weeds with a seller prospect last week, and she and I bonded over that because that's what she does to release stress too. Go take action. That's going to allow you to get your calm back so you can take action yourself on other things. Let's see. Vacant properties, not enough traffic. Again, ask your seller what happens if the house doesn't sell and then plan accordingly. I'll give you this visual. This is going to be our price hill, because when things change and the economic climate has uncertainty, prices tend to go down. And so if a ball is rolling down this hill, the reason you cut the price on your house is because you got to get in front of the ball. If you're cutting it drip, 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 and you're chasing the ball downhill, you may wind up down here before it sells. And so a larger price adjustment is often the trick because you're getting in front of the ball. You got to be the best deal in the market. What good does it do to panic? I'm serious, friend. What good does it do? Not a darn thing. Doesn't help anybody except the people who make money off of your clicks online. So after y'all are done watching this video, cut it off and go do something productive. Bake some bread. Maybe you should go visit a neighbor. In fact, you might have some old folks down the street. Why don't you make them something? If you're feeling well, if you're not feeling well, please don't bake for other people. But bake them something, go down the street, knock on the door and leave it. And so they don't have to talk to you and shake your hand, keep your social distancing at play. But go be helpful to somebody. If you hear that somebody is in a wild panic because the toilet paper is sold out at the Harris Teeter, go give them one of those 4-packs that you hoarded. And remember that abundance comes into play for all of this. I will tell you, that's what I learned during the Great Recession before, that if I were educated and able to take action and able to stay positive and cheerful but not fake, and that way I could be a resource, I was able to power through. And so no matter what happens this time, I'll be able to power through. So go through and take some assessment of yourself and think about what you can do for the long term. Because y'all, we're gonna have to do what the Dust Bowl farmers did and think, you know what, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. It might be okay for a little while. But at some point, if it gets rough again, be able to say next year, because next year's gonna come and you'll be all right. And I'll be here. So if you need anything, reach out, because if there's anything I know about this world that's been created by video and social media, it doesn't have to be lonely, and you don't have to think you're alone, because frankly, friend, you're not. Lee Brown's here, and I'm always glad to help.